According to Frederic Slater, who was the president of the Australian Archaeological and Education Research Society, an original stone arrangement he and a colleague were investigating throughout 1939 is the Stonehenge of Australia. Assumed to be lost for more than 7 decades, this impressive and complex sandstone arrangement is much more than a collection of rocks, signs, and symbols positioned on a mound. According to Slater, the mound is one of the oldest, I should say the oldest, forms of temples in the world and dates back to the advent of first man. Not only was the mound the first temple, the narrative and wisdom it chronicles is as profound as it is sublime, so much so that Slater claimed it formed the basis of all knowledge, all science, all history, and all forms of writing. These are extremely bold claims to make. To suggest that the very first language was spoken and recorded in stone in Australia carries with it many inconvenient historical implications. Modern humanity is assumed to have had its genesis in Africa. In this theoretical construct, there is no room for Australia to be anything other than an afterthought and merely an African colony peopled by mariners who surely spoke before setting sail to Australia. Despite the unpopular stance advocated by Slater, his research was meticulous and the methodology sound. More to the point, such was the strength of the case he made on behalf of the arrangement being the first language. In 1940, representatives of the Australian government approached the farmer who owned the land and threatened to confiscate his land because of these rocks. Within days of the threat by government, the stones were reluctantly bulldozed and the land was left alone. Slater had lost his proof, and not another supporting public statement was made. The whole unpleasant episode was expunged from the public arena, and Slater's correspondence was apparently lost or destroyed. Indeed, this remained the academic state of affairs regarding the site for more than 70 years. But in 2012, Richard Patterson found a 1964 portfolio in Brunswick Valley Historical Society archives. Within the portfolio are handwritten copies of letters of correspondence in 1939 by Frederic Slater. His letters were to a well-respected Brunswick head schoolteacher about the discovery of a stone arrangement within 40 kilometers of Mullumbimby. If not for the maps contained within the portfolio, the site would have been lost possibly forever. The chief feature consists of a mound and a line of stone groups extending 300 yards or more from the mound, roughly in the shape of a boomerang. The stones on the mound weighed between about 0.5 kilogram to 40 kilograms. It was said that many of these stones were carved into pyramid shapes, and some had symbols carved into them. It seemed to investigators that some of the symbols were the antecedents to the beginnings of what would, 1,000 years later, become Egyptian hieroglyphics. The first sacred language that Slater claimed to have deciphered is very complex, multi-layered, and at his last count of 28,000 words, far more diverse and complicated than what could be assumed in relation to the very first language spoken on Earth. We are of the belief this complex language spread throughout most of the coastal regions of Australia, while historical and linguistic texts propose that the first tongue was crude and limited to most basic emotions and objects, which then slowly increased in number and sophistication. Here, a symbol can have 4 different meanings. This formalized method of communication was made up of numbers, hand signs, stone arrangements, elements, trees, letter sounds, animal shapes, etc. The intricate combination of all manner of apparently unrelated themes and disciplines creating a seamless blend into one formal script is in contradiction to the expected rudimentary linguistic starting point and calls into question many assumptions relating to human ascension and development. Leaving aside that reports from the original elders of lore are in accord with the integrity of Slater's claims, the logistics, technology, and labor involved in creating this mound was unparalleled in this country. and deserving of further archaeology on the site. According to Slater and his co-worker, the closest deposit of sandstone was more than 20 kilometers or 12 miles away. The problem is, until the arrival of British settlers in Australia, no one in this country had a wheel, pulley, or metal chisel to cut and move the rocks 20 kilometers, and nor is there any other example in Australia of a mound or stone arrangement weighing over a ton. Quite simply, this original construction doesn't fit into any academic book or curriculum. What unsettles the academic climate further is the content of the narrative contained within this stone arrangement called the mystery of life. The opening placement of stones on the southern edge, which looks very much like a medicine wheel, was interpreted by Slater to read as, "Guided by truth, man came to earth through darkness from light of life that shines far off." This extraterrestrial theme of somebody or being coming to this planet from far off is repeated throughout these constructions, extolling that the truth was brought out on wings to earth, and the divine light from afar to the earth brings the soul to man. It is a site without parallel on the east coast of Australia at so many levels. The means of construction, significance, content, sacredness, and real possibility that this arrangement chronicles the first time modern humans devised a formal means of expressing words and thoughts are but some of the issues that need to be investigated. In what only adds to the intrigue, Slater is not only adamant that the ancient Egyptians were not only present, and most probably assisting in the transport of sandstone and fill, but they came in homage and reverence. He asserted that there is no mistaking the fact that the Aborigines gave not only to the Egyptians their knowledge and their foundation of hieroglyphics and their philosophy, but formulated the basis of all knowledge in the beginning, now, and to come. The archaeology conducted on site is still in the process of being compiled and analyzed. However, a few simple observations can be already offered. The chances are extremely high that this stone arrangement is an actual account of the first sacred language and conveys both historical details and a prophecy of times soon to come. The first mound is definitely artificial. Its shape is too symmetrical. The placement on a flat, swampy plain is dramatically at odds with the surrounding topography, and the sand, clay, and sandstone that makes up the construction is in contradiction with its immediate geology. Throw into this mix confirmation from original elders and custodians versed in original lore and history that this is one of, if not the most sacred site in Australia, and we begin to see why Slater was so adamant that this is Australia's Stonehenge. Slater's opinions and our research of them is obviously up for debate and alternative explanations. But with the bounty of archaeology found on site and elders confirming Slater's translation, this stone arrangement is potentially the most sacred archaeological site in Australia.